Hello everyone, and welcome again to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage YouTube channel. And you are looking at, on a lovely sunny morning, a Morse sewing machine. And the sewing machine is actually pink. You know, over the years I've worked on and made videos on quite a few sewing machines, and very seldom have I ever come across pink machines. And it's sort of surprising if you go back into my my archive of videos, you will see some pink machines. You will see the Atlas machine with the lovely gold trim and pink color. That was sort of a salmon pink, a little warmer color. But I have not found nearly as often as I might expect to see other pink sewing machines of any shade. And it is interesting because so many sewing machines were sold in North America in the 1950s. And I have covered quite a few machines from that period well into the early 60s that were done in turquoise or blue-green colors of some sort. Arguably one of the most popular colors from that era, and for quite a long time. It had a long run. Pink, of course, was popular, but this color is... I'll ask you, what should you name this color? Put down in the comments what colors you think they should be, and I will not lead the question by offering my own yet. I'll reconvene there in the comments, and we'll talk about what would you describe this color. Now you can use the word pink, but of course that's a generic word when we talk about color naming. And all of you have seen enough consumer products to know that they give all sorts of interesting names to colors, and that, of course, that's done to market them. But of course, the Morse machine here, Morse machines are interesting to me in that Morse was never a manufacturer. They took a name that had been known in industrial brands in North America for a long time, and it may have been also named after a person whose last name was Morse, and they created a business where they would source and distribute sewing machines. And of course, their sewing machines came from Japan, which was the leading place of outsource during this time for any consumer products that were not made in the USA or Canada. They were often sourced in Japan. And I've covered this information in past videos. Now, the other way you know this is a Morse is not only because of the name, but there are certain things that give it away. The shape of the side door, the way if you look at it, it kind of has an angle. It sort of tapers inward like the letter V. And then there's this sort of rounded shape on the side, like a little rounded rocket. And the light switch here is right on the left side. That's one. The way they styled their tension dial assembly. There are many ways to do tension assemblies, but this one, of course, you will see on other Morse machines I have covered. And many years ago, one of my first machines that I ever restored was a gray version. And seeing sort of a battleship gray was a very unusual thing for me. I seldom saw sewing machines in that color, but it had a lot of these same hallmarks you could see, right? It had, for example, there is and right now it is probably not moved in a long time. I'm surprised it moved at all. This, of course, is the hideaway spool pin for the thread. And of course, I pushed it down. Now I'm going to have to pull it out. These are spring loaded. They also need to be oiled, so I'll have to go in and get that to work again. I just pushed it down and now I made it, there we go, made it unhappy. It's just tired because it hasn't been maintained, right? But my hope is that I will be able to get it to work once again. Of course, we have push, a very simple, which is also stiff. I'm not going to keep moving things. As I've taught all of you, when you get a machine for the first time, be very gentle and be very considerate with how you move things. If it moves freely, you can do it gently. Now this is my, of course, the stitch length regulator. This is a straight stitch machine. And then this dial here, and it actually turns. That's nice. Sometimes they're all, if they've been stored in attics, nothing will move. And this, of course, adjusts your stitch length. And then you have a feed dog drop mechanism here. You have another spool pin for when you're winding a bobbin. Of course, I just covered the bobbin winder. The paint on this machine is in pretty good shape. I see a little chip here, one over here, a couple of chips. But overall, I've seen a lot worse. And there is something missing here. I don't know if any of you caught this yet, but almost every machine that you get from this period that was made in Japan has a number of things on the, it'll have the name on the front here, like Morse. And then here, many times they'll say, good housekeeping, the good housekeeping seal of approval. That was a big deal on a lot of consumer products. And of course, Good Housekeeping was a magazine. I think it is still a blog today, or a site you can go to. And then below, there are two holes here. Something is missing. It may have fallen off. It may have gotten whacked off. Who knows? But there were places for, if not screws, they may have actually been rivets. And there would have been another plate that would have said, I'm just going to be willing to guess at this because you and I have seen so many of these. It'll say deluxe or super deluxe or precision. These were things that were put on almost every one of these machines, no matter who was selling them. Of course, you have a flip up bobbin plate. This machine does have its original bobbin case down below. And it has, of course, what is often called a dual block power cord, which I've shown these to you all many times. And of course, this one is, if I move around, you'll see that originally this machine came in a different case. It could have come in a table or in a carry case, which was quite common. And if you look, someone has taken the block and mounted it to the side. There's nothing wrong with mounting them. And you see the two cords here. One, of course, is for the motor and others for the light. Now, if you also look really closely, those of you who've been studying vintage sewing machines or looking at my channel, you'll notice something else. This wooden base, the tray, right? The base of what this machine is sitting in is not original to this machine. I would be shocked. In fact, I recognize this case, this tray, as a Singer, and it belonged to Singer. Now, those of you who've seen my channel before know that one of the reasons for this, I can get this to stop hopping, is because the competition, the people who made these machines, they sized the bed of the machine to be the same size as a classic regular Singer, at least before the Slantomatics came out, because they have a different bed width. But they did this because they wanted to be able to get business from Singer owners, and Singer owners were not interested in having to pay extra for a whole new set of, whether it was a sewing table or another case, although cases came with them. At some point in its life, this Morse got separated from its original case or table, and someone realized, well, I'd really like to have this in something. So they found an older Singer platform and just put it in, and it fit beautifully. Now, whoever was putting this together, sometimes these cases would come loose at the end because these cases were glued with wood glue, carpenter's glue. And instead of regluing it and clamping it like I do, someone just drilled screws in and said, oh, we'll just put it back together. You see two over here, and it's got screws all around. So my plan is I may eventually remove these screws. These are, I hope they're wood screws. And then I will simply use my high-strength wood glue, properly reset the joints, right? And then maybe fill in the holes. It'll look a little bit better. There's nothing wrong. I mean, the screws are holding, but they weren't particularly interested in the aesthetics here. They kind of whacked it together to hold it together. And unfortunately, now I saw this machine. I was in a hurry, and I said, oh, sure, I'll take it. It's a paint machine. I don't see those very often. And I remembered from all those years back when I restored the the gray, Battleship Gray Morse that you see shown on my channel. I believe I'm demonstrating it outdoors. One of the things about that machine that I remember to this day, other than the fact that that one had zigzag, right? It was a more expensive version of this because you had to pay extra for features. Same quality. But that machine had a level of smoothness that was incredible. I've noticed over the years of all the Japanese clones, as they're often called, from some of the manufacturers, they all built good machines for the most part, but some of them are simply have a smoother running gear. I mean, there's no slop, there's no vibration, and the Morse was one of those. Now, does that mean every single Morse was built that way? Not necessarily, because the Morse company could have sourced from more than one manufacturer. But you never know. Sometimes I have found machines, some of them were made, a few of them were made by Juki. Even some of the department store machines were sometimes some of the smoothest I've ever come across. It's just remarkable. So this machine, fortunately, is not locked up, at least in terms of its ability to, you can see I'm just wiggling the hand wheel here and making the needle bar go up and down. But that doesn't mean it can sew a stitch. I have no idea. I may go through this machine, get it ready. It may sew beautifully, or it may have problems. You just don't know. But that's the chance you take. Now, there is something missing from this machine. I did not particularly note it when I bought it, but I wasn't really looking that closely. I saw it. I bought it for the color. Well, it has its foot. It apparently has all of its thread guides, and those are really, really important to note because they're not always easy to find. However, you cannot install a needle in this machine because there is no needle clamp. So I went into my stash, and I only briefly did. I did this. I went into my stash and I looked for a spare because, as you all know, I keep parts. I hoard them. I never toss anything away. And I found this needle clamp, but I tried it and it doesn't work. It wasn't meant for this machine. Some needle clamps should be relatively universal, but not always. So if I can find a needle clamp in my inventory that will work, then I will do so. And then hopefully we'll be in business, get a needle installed. Pretty good. I'm pretty sure that this needle installs where it threads from the left towards the right. That's pretty common on Japanese machines of this era, or on most machines of this era, actually. It will thread from the left to the right. And so I've got plenty of needles, just got to have a needle clamp. Someone was messing with this, and if you loosen the thumb screw on a needle clamp too much, it falls off the needle bar shaft, and you have to put it back on. So again, this is an example, along with the case. This machine is an example. I think I mentioned to you, it came with a case, but it's not original. How many of you, my channel viewers who know my videos can spot? It actually came in a trapezoid Singer case. Now, these grass cloth Singer cases were not designed for these machines. In fact, somebody at the thrift store took the trapezoid case, opened it, shoved this machine with its old Singer bed base, the base of the carry case of a Singer, and you just laid it in there. It wouldn't even close. The trapezoid case would not even close because it closes like a clamshell. It couldn't close because this thing didn't fit. I think what may have happened is someone donated the case, someone donated the machine, and someone said, put them together and put them for sale. So it's kind of interesting to me that you really get a hodgepodge sometimes. Now, in this case, this machine will not be going in the Singer trapezoid case because it doesn't fit. But you better believe I kept that trapezoid case because there will be a Singer for which that will need a home in it, right? A Singer 301, for example. The other thing to be mindful of is that the trapezoid cases they're built strong, but they're built for machines that weigh what a Singer Slant-O-Matic does. Those were made with aluminum bodies. These machines are really too heavy to put in those. I know some of you done it. I've seen them, but I have no intention of getting this machine to go into that case. But there you have it. What color is this, everyone? What name would you give this? color for this Morse. I felt sorry for it. It was pink, and I thought, spring is coming. Why don't we just take hold of this Morse? And I will have to start going further into my storehouse of spare parts. I have others in stored away that would include, hopefully, some needle clamps. And if I don't, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to go online and start searching for where to get a needle clamp for a Morse sewing machine. Some of these products, especially from the Japanese manufacturers, they were made to be able to fit different brands, right? Because you had lots of brands, but only so many manufacturers. So that's what I'm counting on. Anyway, I wanted to make this video for you because this just doesn't happen very often. I just don't, in fact, I don't know, maybe I would have passed it by, but I saw a pink sewing machine. I thought, well, I don't see that every day. And it said Morse, and I've had some good experiences with Morse machines. I think they're underrated sometimes. And we will see how it turns out. And if I can get a needle clamp, I'm going to wait till I get the needle clamp before I start restoring the machine. But because you can't sew with it without the needle clamp. If any of you know where I might find a needle clamp for a vintage Morse from the late 1950s, let me know. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, seeing a machine I don't see very often. Maybe you have one. If you do, also share with us in the comments below, and we will see you next time.